everyone's going through so much radical change right now, whether that be because of the tariffs, because of AI, because of cost reduction, or, some companies are still growing and consolidating, like, growing vine companies, expanding like you guys are. And all of those sort of examples, there's this pressure to move at such pace. I find so often that bringing people along on the journey is skipped over.
85%, if not more, of our costs are our people. Our people are our biggest resource, our biggest asset. And yeah, it does sound like a cliche, but I really feel it, right? In private equity, the most important thing is that our people are high performing. To enable high performance, you have to look after them, and you have to have them engaged and feeling like they belong and that part of the solution, and that they and it creates meaning for them, right? It needs to be a meaningful experience. All our people have choices, and I'm very clear that in my own role is that I only have a job because of our people. If we didn't have our people, I wouldn't have a job. My team wouldn't have a job. So we're here, we feel like we're very much servant leaders in terms of what we do. And the pace of change can only be delivered through our people. And if our people are not on the bus, delivering that pace of change is going to be far, far harder.
This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information. Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Felix Mitchell. Now, private equity moves fast, and the vast majority of investments bring pressure on a whole new level. When you're merging 5 businesses into one, whilst hitting double-digit growth targets, the pressure on HR is enormous. And most organizations in that situation end up making a choice, whether it's conscious or not. It's pace or it's people. Today's guest thinks that's a false choice. Jonny Friedman is Chief People Officer at Acumetis Global, a private equity-backed healthcare services business, currently in the middle of a major integration program. Nevertheless, he thinks it's so important to lead with what he calls a father-first mentality, and believes that trust is the most valuable financial metric that most businesses aren't measuring at all. Jonny, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I can't wait to get into this with you, but I think most people haven't worked in a private equity backed organization. What's the dynamics there that make it different to one that's sort of organically grown or publicly traded or public sector?
I think private equity backed organizations are, it's a different beast. Usually the intention is that an organization is financed for an investment cycle, whether that's 3 years, 5 years, that's a typical amount. And what tends to happen is the first couple of years sees a lot of investment, a lot of growth, a lot of resources poured into the organization with the intention that at the end of that life cycle, the value of the organization significantly grows, so that ultimately the business that they've inherited at the beginning of the life cycle is worth far more at the end. So it becomes, over time, more and more focused around the numbers and around the commercial. And I think the key challenge is that, from my point of view, as the CPO, is to make sure that the commercials and the culture kind of carry hand in hand, because I absolutely believe the stronger the culture, the stronger the commercial will be overall.
And what leads what in that? Is it a culture created for numbers, or is it numbers that are underpinned by the culture?
I think different people give you different answers.
What's the Jonny answer?
Well, thank you, Felix. If you give me a chance, I think that culture is something that, when you invest in culture, you can't always see the results immediately, and you can't always land on the tangibles that, as a result of this particular activity, these are the results. Ultimately, my focus is around the company and the performance of every individual. How do we optimize people's performance. And to optimize people's performance, generally speaking, there is a correlation between the performance and the culture. Like, if people are happy at work, they're more likely to perform. And I think that comes with clarity, that comes with giving people confidence, and that comes with kind of building the trust in the leadership that driving the business.
And obviously, I mean, you've got, with 5 businesses, isn't it? You're bringing under one, which must come with a huge amount of challenge. You mentioned how important it is to trust leadership, but then I guess you've got your underpinning for, presumably those 5 different businesses came with 5 different cultures. How have you gone about managing the sort of consolidation of all of those different organizations in a way where 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals 6 instead of 5?
With great difficulty, and we're still going through it. So we're working across 9 different countries, and the cultures are significantly different across some of those countries. So we span across the UK, we span across France and Germany, the US, Canada, India. And for example, the US culture, the UK culture are so different. And what we can't really end up doing is trying to create a single culture where everybody kind of thinks and feels and behaves the same way. We have to allow for some region difference, but as long as we do things like establish what the clear values are of the business, and then give people the opportunity to relate and connect to what those values mean for them and how they can then behave with those values, both kind of in terms of what we deem as positive behaviours, and then also the behaviours that we won't tolerate. The intercultural or the kind of global behaviours is something that really interesting. That we're learning from each other, kind of what behaviour is acceptable, what isn't. Sometimes people don't realise, and sometimes it has unintended consequences. But generally speaking, we're all kind of focused towards the same goal. But it's the cross-country cultural differences that provide the biggest challenge.
So that's the bigger challenge than the cross original company.
Yes.
Lines. Wow, that's so interesting. So the values, I mean, make sure I've got this right. The values provide the
infrastructure, right? It's like the building block, right? So we've got 4 key values around integrity, accountability, entrepreneurial, and also kind of and also wisdom as well. So you've got those 4, and then what we've got to try and do is make sure that kind of how do we relate to those 4 values, right? That's going to be different in the US, that's going to be different in the UK, and we shouldn't try and force that everybody needs to behave the same way. People will kind of make their own connection, but as long as there is a general belief and kind of approach within that country towards those 4 values, then you started to build some commonality.
I'm really interested in this. I think you might be the first person I've had on the show and not that I've asked everyone, but I wouldn't have thought that you'd have a behavior that you'd accept in America and not in India, for example. How does that play out, or how will that play out? Because everything you're saying makes total sense and logical sense, but how would that play out when you're looking at one company, one dream? I don't know, what would an example be? Showing up 5 minutes late to a Zoom call, for example. How do you create something cohesive where you tolerate something in one country and not in another?
Like I said, with difficulty, we're in the early infancy of this journey, right? So we've kind of mapped out kind of a plan of what we want to do, but very much kind of that example that you've just given, about attending 5 minutes late. I know some people, irrespective of what country they belong to, would have a real issue if other people are late. And then there are other people that are super relaxed about it. But generally, I think there are some countries, generally speaking, that would very much kind of focus that you have to, if the meeting begins at 9 o'clock, you've got to be there at 9 o'clock. And it's a sign of disrespect if you're not there. I'm very conscious that, I'm often running from meeting to meeting and I'm always apologizing for being late. So that's something that I'm going to have to get better at.
Well, you were 4 minutes early this morning, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Let the record show.
Well, it is. And I got lost as well trying to find this as well.
That will be on the highlight reel. Thing from this. So I think that's really fun. I'd really love to check back in and see how all of that goes. I think to your point, I suppose maybe if the behaviours are going to change subtly, but from country to country, why is it important to have a sort of common set of behaviours that you tolerate or don't anyway?
Because we've got to drive some commonality within regions. We've got to drive a level of expectation. And also what's great about it is that our colleagues co-create it. So if they're part of the solution, they're more likely to lead by example. That's the whole thing about this program that we've done. So in the UK, for example, our head of L&D, an amazing colleague called Sarah Brown, who I hope will be listening to this at some point. Sarah has worked with each of the levels, right, and engaged with each of the levels to come together on these workshops, and with myself and another colleague, Amanda, working together on what's important for us that shows up against these four values. What do they mean for us? How do we bring this to life? How does it work for us? And then what we do is that kind of all the observations that we captured, we then shared with the next level down. And we did that the next level down. And we continue to edit it, rebuild it, review it and tweak it so that everybody had a say. And then all of a sudden you end up with a co-creation of distilled set of behaviours. What we tried to do was we had like literally 10 sheets of flip charts and everything else. We had to distill it down to a group of statements, which we then announced at our town hall and checked for resonance. And we tweet it a little bit since then, but then it's something that we want everybody to just have like by their side at their laptops, so that they know it's just a crib sheet almost to remind people of this is how we are, this is who we are. And if they see other people not behaving in that way, then they have every right to challenge, right? So that's what needs to happen, and that's what we're doing for every single country, so that everybody's got a slightly different view, but generally working toward those same four values.
It's interesting. I mean, you're talking about all of this, and you've done it at the back end of a huge amount of change for your organization. And I can't even imagine. I struggle to get my head around bringing one business into it.
I don't think it's the back end. I think it's the front end.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. It's I think once we've kind of merged the UK businesses together, and we've got an org structure, then we need to kind of agree, well, how are we going to behave? How are we going to operate? How are we going to be? And finding commonality in the original cultures, and working out what is it that we want to pack in our suitcase and take with us in our suitcase and use in our new organization, and what is the stuff that we're happy to leave. And finding commonality between our old organizations in the UK, which were called FICON and Decisive Consulting, bringing those things that people really wanted to keep was so important to them. And so that's what we tried to do. We tried to keep that. So one of the mantras we had in FICON was never leave anybody behind. And that was so important, that we treat every single individual the same in the organization. And it's very easy for people to subscribe to that, because then all of a sudden everybody feels like they belong. Everybody's part of something, and everybody knows that they won't get forgotten. So those kind of things are really important. I can bring that to life if you'd like.
Yes, please. Yeah, absolutely.
So for example, we're running a summer Friday afternoons program, which is geared around flexibility. Our colleagues really value flexible, kind of work-life balance and flexible working. So on Friday afternoon, we've come up with a plan that kind of if you all your work is finished, then you can finish right early on a Friday afternoon. Who doesn't want to do that? But the key thing is that we have to make sure that we leave nobody behind. So it's no good 75% of people going off, Friday afternoon and leaving our project managers or our project directors with tons of work still to do, right? Ultimately, we still have to deliver for our clients. We still have to ensure that all our outputs are delivered. But if we can do that in a way whereby we plan carefully from Monday at the beginning of the week with the intention of finishing Friday afternoon, that everybody pulled in, everybody kind of mucks together, and we can make sure that everybody on that project completes and finishes at the same time, that is making sure that we leave nobody behind. And for those reasons, we've done this on a trial period, because ultimately our colleagues will tell us if it's working, not for the leadership team tell us it's working. Our colleagues will say, is everybody part of this, or are some people not kind of sticking to that value?
It's really interesting. And I do think that sort of co-creation, co-buy-in is something that's so often left to the side, forgotten about. And as you've been talking, I think I started this podcast saying, the private equity world's so different. Mm-hmm. As you've been talking, I'm just questioning that statement as a whole. Everyone's going through so much radical change right now. Whether that be because of the tariffs, because of AI, because of cost reduction, or some companies are still growing and consolidating, growing, buying companies, expanding like you guys are. Mm-hmm. And all of those sort of examples, there's this pressure to move at such pace that I find so often that bringing people along on the journey is skipped over. I've been guilty of it. We've been guilty of it at Instant Impact, but it just means you
it's harder.
Well, it's way harder.
So much harder.
It just you end up having to do that, sort of pick up the pieces and do it in retrospect anyway.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I moved into private equity owned organizations. Is I love the speed. I love the speed of change, the speed of transformation. It's what floats my boat. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So I love that kind of, almost like the turbulence of kind of starting with something and then transforming it and then ending up with something that feel very different. But in our organization, 85%, if not more, of our costs are our people. Our people are our biggest resource, our biggest asset. And it does sound like a cliche, but I really feel it, right? In private equity, the most important thing is that our people are high performing. To enable high performance, you have to look after them, and you have to have them engaged and feeling like they belong and that part of the solution, and that and it creates meaning for them, right? It needs to be a meaningful experience. All our people have choices, and I'm very clear that in my own role, it's that I only have a job because of our people. If we didn't have our people, I wouldn't have a job. My team wouldn't have a job. So we're here, we feel like we're very much servant leaders in terms of what we do. And the pace of change can only be delivered through our people. And if our people are not on the bus, delivering that pace of change is going to be far, far harder.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think let's talk about leading with that sort of human first element, because we talked a lot about performance, a lot about change. Why does the human fit into this for you? I know it's really important to you.
It is. I think that's the easy bit for me, Felix, because that's just who I am. I was telling you before before this podcast. Yeah, I'm a father to four boys, and that's the proudest thing that I have. It's a real privilege to be a dad, and that's given me perspective on kind of what's important in life and therefore what's important at work. And I just feel that people in this day and age where the world is so divided, it's so challenging, there are kind of distractions and difficulties for all sorts of remit, whether it's political, economic, financial, physical, whatever it is. And I really feel that kind of if we can build something where people feel more connected and part of something and it's meaningful, that work becomes more enjoyable and more valuable to them. I just think that's the opportunity. And by doing that, generally speaking, that does enable better results. So it's a win-win. So I make no apology that that's the kind of culture I want to drive, and my team, that I'm very, very lucky to have, know that that's it. That's the approach that I observe.
How do you balance expectation for performance with the humanity? I'd probably go further. I think you're a lovely guy. I think kind of come really.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I think you're a lovely guy. You got. We've only had a couple of hours together, so you can always prove me wrong. But I think there's. I what I know without doubt is that you really care about the people on your team and the people in the wider business. How do you hold those two in your hands and in your head at the same time?
I think that part of the answer is that people can see I really care. Therefore, the chances are higher that people are likely to trust me. But I also think that it's just about being honest. I've chatted a lot with our CEO about just making sure that when we have to give business results, when things aren't going great, don't spin it. Don't try and be disingenuous or protect our people. They prefer to be told directly. Just be honest and tell them. And then all of a sudden, generally speaking, people who really appreciate that honesty. And then if you just continue to be honest, I find that human connectedness is easy, but also calling out that we need more from the performance point of view, because we're sharing that the business isn't performing, and therefore, there's no other alternative than to be honest. I just feel that those two go hand in hand. But that's the only way I know how. Everybody had a different style.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I think people can take a lot more than leadership. I've seen organizations where they're sort of, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it, and then they have to make difficult choices, and it feels like it's come out of left field. I've always thought, sort of, I agree with you. We're a super transparent organization. At least everyone knows where they are.
I personally think that helps in good times and in bad times. I think it really matters, because also actually in the bad times, when things are difficult, that's when human-centered leadership matters most. It's easy when you're winning. It's when you're losing, so to speak, or you're up against challenges. That's when leadership really matters, and you're standing strong. You're giving direction. You're listening. You're providing compassion and empathy, but still reminding people what's important in the business around performance. And I think part of my challenge is that I'm working with my team on is how do we coach our line managers to deliver that really important balance of performance delivered with compassion and empathy. Because generally, most people are capable, right? But they're not performing because either they're out of love with the work, or there's something that's getting in the way. And, trying to address that thing that gets in the way, rarely can you address it through aggression or being kind of through negative type behaviors. They need support. They need a way of unlocking that, right? And that usually comes with coaching, support, compassion, and helping our leaders deliver more coaching with more emotional intelligence, and kind of protecting them from some of the pressure from above at the same time. That's the challenge of leaders, and that's the challenge of leaders that, regardless of what AI and other kind of big challenges in the future will come to, ultimately, we will always have a business of people that need to perform.
That really resonates with me. I'm sure it will for many people listening as well. You mentioned that your team, a big focus of theirs is to build those skills in the managers. I wonder if you could go into a little bit more detail, because it feels like on this, the devil is in the detail on these pieces. What are the skills that you give your managers? Is there a particular model of coaching that you teach them? What kind of support do you provide them with?
Okay, so like I say, we've only just all 5 organizations come together. So we're working out what the priorities are and what we need to do. The number one priority that we're finding for our consultants and senior consultants and managers is actually kind of is some of the basic project management skills. That I don't mean just project management skills in terms of how to manage a project, but how to manage a project with leadership, with clarity, and kind of really clear deliverable outcomes. That requires a lot of connection, conversation, discussion about what is the business trying to do, where does the business want to go to, and how can we give them confidence and gravitas with that. Often we see our project managers who are feeling under pressure, lack of time, just trying to kind of literally go through the tick boxes and get all the different items done without the wider engagement of all the stakeholders and getting all clear that we're all on the same page and all the alignment. So just that bringing together the people. And then from there, we then got people within the projects that need to, that need support from the project managers, and spending time on a one-to-one level with those project managers, identifying kind of what, which person needs what help do they need to give, and how would we go about doing that. That's what we're now starting to focus on with our people partners.
Yeah, it's really just that sort of the structure and the engagement, I guess.
It's structuring the engagement, and probably the other thing that I've not even mentioned yet, which is such an important part of our job, is utilizing data and insight. So looking at all the data we have around our people, things like, absence, attrition. We use culture engagement scores, which provides us with such a richness of qualitative data as well about what we're doing and what people need as well. Fusing all that data is so important as well.
Really, really interesting. Jonny, we're coming up to the end. Let me just ask you one question to round us off. What's a good time frame? 18 months from now, I'm going to give you a call.
Okay. I look forward to that.
What do you, me too. And I'm going to ask you how this has all gone. What do you hope to be able to say?
I hope to be able to continue to say, I've not changed my essence of what I shared today in terms of the leadership that I've offered, that I want to offer, and to encourage our FLT to become an even stronger unit, and a stronger force for direction. That the strength of our integration has obviously got much stronger. We're very clear on both our employer value proposition and also our employee value proposition, because we're still working that through. And generally, I think what I'd really like to do more than anything else is be able to talk with even more pride, proud of kind of who Acumetis are, pride in terms of how we've grown and how we've developed, and also pride that we can talk about our future roadmap as well.
Brilliant. Well, Christmas 2027. Jeez, I'll be giving you a call.
Look forward to that.
Jonny, thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure. Thank you.